Today's daf is this is Wednesday. Is daf Tzadik Daled. Daf Tzadik Daled. What a tragedy we had yesterday. The Chassam Sofer writes in the Tshuva that any Yid who was killed, regardless of how many or few mitzvahs they do, they were killed purely because they were Jewish, makes them a Kaddish. And the Minchas Yitzchak in the Tshuva brings a whole criteria after the Holocaust. There were people who said that you shouldn't have to say Kaddish after the Kadoshim who passed away because they're already in Gan Eden, and there's no Indian of saying Kaddish for them. So anyway, we want to learn now, and not only their schus, but also all those who are sick. And unfortunately, there's like 16 or 17 names there that all need a refuah shlema gorgichen. So we're going to learn their schus. Names will help them that never ever happen again. Or you'll see them. And they should all recover very quickly. And we should be zeicher to regula shlema straight away. Thank you for miyad. Amen. We're up to Tzadik Daled. So we had a machlekes in the Mishnah. We said that if the blood from the chatas falls on your shirt or something, you have to rinse out that little particular spot. But a machlekes, if it has to be a garment, it has to be just suitable to be a garment, or even if it's not suitable, even if it's suitable, it's not good enough. It has to actually be made a garment. So when the Mishnah said right in the middle of the page of Tzadik Daled, and all of this is the Wednesday's Gemara. Says the Gemara here. First of all, ain't right in the middle of the page. Ain't there are two dots. Ain't ton gibus. You don't have to wash it. Menohan immediately. We're just starting the Gemara right now. How do you know the Tanabam we learned? Yochel nitis al mitzvah bed yekol beg. How do you know that only the section where the blood fell you have to cleanse? Yochel, I would have thought nitis al mitzvah bed yekol beg ton kibus. You should wash the entire beged. Tamaloimer. It says in the pasuk asher yazeh that the part that you spray loy amarti lecho. I didn't tell you ela mokum dam bilvad. Only the place where the blood fell down. It says asher yazeh medom ala beged. Only that section where the dam fell down. Then the Mishnah says davar shuro when it collects all the rules. It says davar shehu ra'u lekabel tumah. We just had a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar if it's a row to be a beged is good enough, or actually in your machshava you have to decide that this is it. This is going to be the beged. You're not going to do anything further. So stomach Rabbi Yehuda. Obviously our Mishnah stam pas Rabbi Yehuda. It says the roll kibus. Then it says another rule is it has to be something that's suitable to be laundered. What do you mean? And what do you mean? And what's not suitable? The mutik kli. If it's like the blood fell on the keli, then you don't launder it, but rather you scrape it off. Echad habeged. Then Mishnah says whether it's a beged, whether it's a sack, which is the feathers of a goat, and then it says echad or leather. And all of these require laundering. Sounds like leather can be laundered. So the Gemara is interesting how you go. We're in the middle of Kabbanis and Zevachim, and Adin and Hilchos Shabbos is from here. The story is in Gemara Shabbos, but the halach and everything else is from here, and the whole shakos, the big machlekes and poskim, how to learn the Gemara. Remember the bar kibus. So you tell me that the leather can be laundered. Let me ask you a question. V'raminu, we learned in Shabbos hoisa olav lash leshes. If you had already a clump of dirt or something, is mekancha bismarta. Let's say on a pillow made out of material, and there's some dirt there or some stain or something. So what you do is you take a shmata and you wipe it off. But if it was made out of hide, you're not put water on it because water is laundering. You're not doing Shabbos. It's malabin, right? So water is malabin, it's cleaning, and it's one of the 39 malachas. So you cannot do that. And there's another reason we're worried about schita, that you're going to squeeze it out. Made out of leather. Leather. Put water on it and let the water and wash it off so that the dirt, whatever, comes off. What about libun? Obviously, leather. There's no laundering by leather. There's no kibbutz. So now Mishnah clearly says that there is. That's what you get rid of the blood. I'm going to buy lekashet. So machlekes, and our Mishnah holds like one opinion, and the Gemara holds like another opinion. What's the story? The time to be learned. Ha beged v'hasak. That a beged and the sack mechapsai, you wash it off. We're talking about the blood of a chat. You wash it off. Hakli oil megadi, but it comes to the kli, but then it says the hide as well. In other words, hide you cannot launder. So megadi you scrape it off. So this thing in Shabbos follows the chachamim. But that oil, there's no laundering there for you allowed to put water on it. And our Mishnah follows Achedim because they say habegi vasak veha oil mechapsai. You can launder also the oil and get rid of the tochatim. But kili megara, you scrape it off. Says the Gemara, Kaman also Rabbi Badashi. So according who does it go? What Rabbi Badashi said. Zimus gave what's happened. Never keep the Kamed was before Rab. The shach, or sometimes I used to stand before Rab. The shach shichalei misane b'maya. I used to go ahead and wash his shoes with water on Shabbos. Kaman, in other words, there's no laundering by leather. It must be like the Rabban. So the Rabban hold there's no laundering by leather. Now Mishnah over here that says that there is follows the Achedim. Amar Rav says, Rabbi, what are you talking about? What do you tell me? You tell me that oil is you cannot launder oil. But see, it says when it comes to tzaras, it says v'habeged or si or erev, and the beged of different materials and the warp noof oil, cold clear oil or anything made out of leather. Asher techabes. It says in the pasuk clearly that you should wash. The pasuk clearly says that you can wash. Hello, Rabbi. Says Rabbi, he says there's two kinds of leather. There's two kinds of leather: soft leather and hard, tough leather. Soft leather can be washed, and when all those places that says you can wash it, like in our Mishnah here by Chatas, you can wash it. It's talking about soft leather, and there where it says that. And the machlekes of Achedim and Chachamim regarding Shabbos, the laundering is talking about tough leather, and then what do you call it? And Achedim say that what do you call it? That tough leather can also be laundered, but Chacham can't. And Elam Kro Masisim Berakin, the pasuk that says by Tzaras, talking about soft leather and keep pligi because machlekes is by kashin. How are you going to learn the story in Gemara Shabbos about washing the shoes? It was tough leather. And they passed it out, passing the rabbanon that by tough leather there's no laundering, so therefore he allowed him to wash it. Then the famous thing by Rava, more than any other Amalya, harder Amarava Lam Milsi Damri. You can change his mind a few times. What I said is not correct. Because what am I saying? I'm explaining about tzaras. It must be talking about when the Torah says launder the leather, it's talking about the soft leather. I find that difficult. You tell me that the Torah doesn't make any exceptions. It says that the leather you wash, and you tell me now the Torah only meant a certain type of leather. It's hard to say. Am I going to say that I'm limiting the pasuk by tzaras when it says over there that you should wash the tzaras off? It's talking about rakin by leather. Me like sivan is asking. It's talking about any kind of leather, including kli aksalgio, some kind of a keli, which is made out of tough leather. Which is made out of leather. It says launder. Because that's what I guess was common. And the Torah makes unequivocally, go ahead and tzaras, just wash it off, even with leather, just wash it off. That means even tough leather can get washed. So I was wrong. I maintain what I said. Soft leather can be washed. Tough leather is a machlekes rabbanon and achedim, chacham and achedim. But leprosy, I was wrong. Why? Because leprosy, all leathers are considered soft. Why are all leathers considered soft? Tzaras, keeping the gufi kaparcha. The tzaras comes from the leather itself. Then milchalchale, the tzaras itself weakens it. Umashal rach, makes it tender. So therefore, the tzaras is a different story. It's always considered rach, tender.
I think this is why we say halacha Rabba.
Go honest.
Rabba is prepared to change his mind.
He goes weiter. Let's go weiter.
Say I made a mistake.
Let's go weiter. Rabba says, "Eat kashli," but if you want to ask a question on me, how kashli? He's so honest. He's even going to continue. Well, you really see the honesty of Rabba is in the sugya of Yesh Lemadas. A very strong kasha on Abaya. Rabba is one who answers exactly for Abaya. Help him out. And Punk did Allah is like Abaya.
But because the pursuit of truth is what's important.
And
right. It's about
exactly. This bothers me. It says, what about kodim and ksosais? So you have over there, pillows and cushions and all that. The rakin, they're definitely soft because you're sleeping on it, so you want something soft. And yet, with Tanan, we learned hoisa shel oil. If that was made out of oil, noisen ola mai machatichla. I just finished saying that soft leather. Everyone is moide. That is kibbutz. That is washing. Right? Everyone is moide. And the whole machlekes is only by kashin. And therefore, our Mishnah is saying over here. Our Mishnah could be talking about rachin soft, and that's why it says launder it. Or it could be talking about tough and goes to chedim. Is there it clearly says that you can go ahead and launder pillows, and pillows, no question, is soft leather. You're not going to sleep on hard leather. So Rabbi says, okay, I'll go further. There's two kinds of kibbutz. There's a kibbutz where you just put water on it, and there's a kibbutz where you rub it against each other so that it should clean out. So when we say you're allowed to put water on things, put water. Cold kibbutz are less like kiskos, anything that you don't rub against each other, or rub your hand against it, or rub the sides against it. Then loishme kibbutz. That's like cold kibbutz. So therefore, you're allowed to do that, and that's why the pillows over here. It says here, leather. It's irrelevant what the leather is because even if it's soft, all you're doing is putting water on it, and that you're allowed to do. When is it called kibbutz? When you rub against each other. But the Gemara, I understand the story. But my shich, all I did was I put water on it. I did not rub it. I just put water on it to wash away all the dirt and everything else, but didn't rub it. So therefore it goes to everybody because it's not kibbutz. And I can learn it goes if you talk about soft and according to everybody, and then according to everybody, caution, or I could even talk about caution, but there's no kibbutz at all by a ched. So beged nami. So why can't you then put water on the beged also? It says over there only on oil that did it, but not on a beged. If all you're doing is putting water on it, and it's not really called kibbutz washing, why can't you on Shabbos put water on a beged? Beged nami. So he says beged is different. Shriyasai, and this is the halach shalom, zehu kibbusai. By a beged, just soaking in the water cleans it out. So that's already, you're not allowed to do shri, you're not allowed to soak it in water. By leather, soaking is not going to do anything. He's not going to clean it out. Because it's penetrates a lot more, so you can't. The time made, Zorak through a handkerchief in the water, a chayu on Shabbos, a chayu, because that's how you wash it. Aber Zorak pishtal threw flax in the water. Sorry, but then he said, Yosef, if you throw flax in the water, you chayiv. But our main right now is if you threw the handkerchief in the water, you chayiv. You just threw it in the water. You didn't do anything, no rubbing, nothing. But that's called libun. Says the Gemara, okay, now that you threw that in, let me ask you a question. Bishlai Masud, I understand why if you throw a handkerchief in the water on Shabbos, you chayiv because of the kibbutz. That's called laundering. Elazara pisht, and you threw in flax seeds. My time, what's the problem? You threw in the water. You can tell me because it grows. Is that the problem? Because it's considered as if zoreya. You're not allowed to plant things on Shabbos, so you're not allowed to water your garden. So throwing seeds in the water is as if you are growing. Then why put flax seeds? Any seeds you should be able to put into the water. So my answer is no. You know what's the problem with flax seeds is? The problem is not zoreya. The problem is hanach islahu ridi. They have these stringy, wet, fluidy things sticky that string out. One of the malach on the Shabbos is lisha. When you put different things together, disparate things together, and they connect, they suddenly you made lisha. You connected a whole bunch of separate things together. So by flax seeds, they sort of grow spurts. Like spuds, they grow things out and they connect. It becomes one mess. Started off 10 seeds and now it becomes one. That's like lisha on Shabbos. But shenke and other things, wheat, barley, it doesn't happen. If so, if you're worried about connecting, so leather does happen. So it oozes out some fluids. Hasam ka'avid lisha. There, but he says even my leather comes out, they don't stick and become one. But shenke by they're very sticky. And they like a mucus-like thing, and they become one. Now, Dorash Rava came along after all this said and done. Mutter lechabes minol b'Shabbos. You're allowed to bechabes. You're allowed to wash a minol on Shabbos. It's very hard to understand what's going on. Your Rava just finished the whole sugi. You're not allowed to do kibbutz. You're only allowed to put water on it. You're not allowed. Kibbutz means when you go ahead and rub. That's kibbutz. So what's he saying? You're allowed to after you finish including. You're not allowed to do that. What's he saying here? Because unless he's talking about here a hard shoe, according to Chachamim, where a hard shoe, there's no kibbutz at all. It's only a tender, soft leather, and these are hard shoes. I only did kibbutz and I didn't do any rubbing. So you see, now you sound like you say allowed to do kibbutz, and here he said clearly that he didn't do any kibbutz. Now you could have answered they're talking about soft shoes and that's why he didn't rub it, and I'm talking about hard shoes, but he doesn't answer that. A second time now in the same conversation. Now he's saying I actually made a mistake. Now, it's clear to me, I'll do any kibbutz. And yet in Shulchan Aruch, whatever, there's a big machlekes, the Rambam seems to hold that you're allowed to do kibbutz, and everyone wants to understand how it's going on, or what's going on, how do you understand, and why doesn't Rabbi just answer what I just told you?
He means dry, doesn't he? Not put it in water and rub it.
No, Shikshah means
no,
kibbutz we just translated. Kibbutz is only if you put water and you rub it. Yeah. If you just put water, you're allowed to. No, you're allowed to put water. It's only when you rub against each other with your hand and everything else. Anyway, so sorry.
So what is he calling here?
That's what kibbutz means to do. He said before, "Ain't kibbutz." Top of the page. Kol kibbutz the leslie kiskus loishme kibbutz. I wouldn't use the word kibbutz if you're not rubbing it. Kibbutz means laundering it. You're not stop soaking your water. So, and then when he says at the end of the year that kibbutz is mutter, he's talking about kibbutz with rubbing. Now you could have answered this simply thing here. We're talking about hard leather, and the Chachamim say there's no problem there, but he doesn't. Why not? And there's a long bir halacha from the Pima Shabura trying to explain this whole Gemara here, how the Rambam and tomorrow are different. Anyhow, but the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch actually in the Segraim puts it that this Isser over here, this Isser is only exerted Rabbanan. This kibbutz. L'chayri, you would have thought this is from the Pashup Pshat in the Gemara, but he puts in Segraim in parentheses. And the Mishnah Berurah wants to say that also along the lines that it's only midrabanan. I don't know if he quotes Al Rebbe, but Al Rebbe clearly in the Segraim says that maybe this whole East is only rabbanan, but Mahatoida is it's mutter. Anyway, Hakim Makom Kaddish, where should you do the kibbutz? Daf in the base of Migdash. But how do you know that? Torah Banim we learn. It says a pasuk Techabes you should wash b'Makom Kaddish in a holy place. Shvilas Klichedes. Where do you now break the Klichedes? Remember we said that the Klichedes we had a carbon in all the leftover foods becomes noises. You have to destroy it. You can't kasher it, so you break it. Where do you break it? Again, in the base of Migdash. How do you know that? Tamalayim, because the next pasuk says Klicheres. The pasuk before says that you should Techabes b'Makom Kaddish. You launder Makom Kaddish. The next pasuk says Klicheres. It means in the same place. Then the pasuk continues. Merika v'shtifa, where you kasher, if it's klei copper, and you rinse it out. Where is that? And Talmud the imbi klei chosh, it's a continuation. The imbi klei chosh bushalov was cooked there, and you go ahead and kasher it in the water. So it's all in the same place. Then you say zeh chayme b'chatas. It says that this is chumra chatas. This thing of the blood is only a din by chatas. Says Gemara, that's the only chumra chatas has over everything else. V'suleka. Let me ask you a few other chumras. So there is shenichnes dama lifnim. One of the karma chatos you actually do inside the base of Migdash. No other carbon do you do inside the base of Migdash. The chatas are primis. So Gemara said, but we're focusing on chatos and chetzonis. Within the chetzonis, that's the chumra of chatas. So Gemara, okay. What about another chumrah? Sheim nichnas dama lifnim psula. We the Chacham hold that only a karma chatas if you brought the blood, because the pasuk talks about karma chatas. Ashiyuva medama in Moshe Rabbeinu there. Only there, but all other kabbanas you brought the blood inside. Just take it back out. So Gemara said no. Our Mishnah holds like Rabbi Kiva. Dama kol damim shenichnos lahechel lechaper psula. Any blood you brought inside from any carbon is possible. So shekem mechaper chayav krisis. Another thing is a chatas is the only one that's mechayed, that's a chaper achiyava cases. No, we're talking about chatas, the shmias koil. We're talking about chatas, but there's no chorus involved. Where you heard you knew edus and you didn't. You said I don't know any edus. Another chumrah, ketuna arba matanis. Everything else you only sprinkle twice. Shehein arba, that's splatters and becomes 4. Here you got to sprinkle 4 times. Okay, you're like b'shmol. Our Mishnah holds b'shmol. The kol dami tun damatanis. All kabbalas need 4 times. So you must say, yeah, but al dalet kronos. All the other ones, even though you need 4 times, you only do it on 2 diagonal opposites, but you do one on one side, one on another side. So you do 4 different times. And you spray one that becomes 2. You do 4 times. But chatas needs 4 corners. Number 1. So Gemara says back, let's say you're right. But there's so many others. What about Keden? All other kabbanas you do below the red line. Here, you not only do above the red line, you do all the way on top. Ha'ika etzba, all other ones use a keli for the blood. Here, you use a finger. Ha'ika chuda, and the corner has to be mamish on the corner, not near it. Elachad mitzayt losa chumen. How many chumras you want me to mention? Next Mishnah. Beged, you have to chaim. The executive so then you have to launder it. So the beged, if the beged went outside of the base of Hamikdash, nichnas, you bring it back in. Because it has to be done inside the base of Mikdash. B'makom Kaddish. What about nitma? It became tummy. Now, if it became tummy, you're not bring anything tummy into the base of Mikdash. So when nitma chutz l'klaim, it became tummy outside of the base of Mikdash. So you rip it so that it loses its. You don't put it in the mikveh, because if you're going to put it in the mikveh, it's going to wash out the stain or part of the stain. And it says that everything has to be laundered inside the base of Mikdash. So you can't put it in the water. Remember we said about clothes? Shriyasan zeu kibusan, just soaking it. So you can't just put it in the mikveh. So what do? You make it uzbeged, so you rip it, and then you bring it into the base of Mikdash. It's no longer tamei. You bring the base of Mikdash, and then you do the laundering part. Nichnis. Then you bring it back in and you mechabes and you launder it. Klecheres, what do you do? Klecheres shiyotze when out of the base Mikdash climb. Obviously, the Mikdash talk about it. Shechuzah climb. Nichnis v'shoivra. You bring it back in and you bring it Magen Kodesh. Again, no matter what happened, you always got to bring it back in to do the job. Nit mechutz climb became tamei. Is again noikvoi. You puncture it, and by you puncturing it, it's no longer a keli. And remember, we learned generally if you make a small hole, it sort of loses part of its keli, but it can take bigger things. So you make a small hole, loses part of its keli. The manichnas, you break it inside. Clean the chayshes, copper, shiyatz, same thing. You bring it back in. Even the kashing has to be done inside the base of Mikdash Magen Kodesh. What about nit mechutz l'klayim? Again, tell me outside the climb is poich soy. You open up the keli. The nichnas, you bring it out by opening up, it's no longer serving as a keli, so it loses its tumah. Everything has tumah. If it's no longer the original keli, it loses tumah. And then the nichnas they go in and you kasher it inside the Beis Hamikdash. So if you want to ask a question, you tell me you rip the beged or beged or merachmana. It says in the Torah that even though it says that if it falls on your beged, Gemara is learning that doesn't mean only falling on your beged. It has to be continuous to be when you do the laundering. The next part of the pasuk should still be considered a beged. But if you ripped it in half, it's garnished. Yeah. Vlad Begadu says you leave behind a pot enough to be a handkerchief. No, you leave a little bit. We have a general room that 3 fingers by 3 fingers. So whenever the Gemara says sholosh al sholosh, which is really lashon nekeva, that's the only thing by number. By numbers, the hay is lashon zacher without the hay in the nekeva. Sholosh is in the nekeva, then we know it means etzbois, 3 fingers. If it says shloisha al shloisha, which is male, then we know it means tvachim, or the size of a hand. So when it comes to 3 fingers by 3 fingers, it's the smaller size of a beged to say that's still kosher. Why? Because you can use it as a patch. So it has some significance. So what do? You rip it, but you leave 3 fingers by 3 fingers, enough to be, so therefore, yeah, Aini's not so. He says that when do we say that a talus that was tired? If you rip the majority of it, it becomes tired only if you did not leave 3 fingers. If you left 3 fingers there, it's considered 1 beged. So if you're telling me it's still considered a beged because we left 3 fingers, then you didn't tear it, then you didn't lose the status of a beged, so it doesn't lose its tumah. And what are we trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve that it loses its tumah, but it won't happen. Says the Gemara midrabban, that we say that the 3 fingers of Zaydrabban, he was worried that you're not going to rip most of the talus. So he wants to make sure you rip most of the talus. So therefore he says you have to rip most of the talus. The only way you do that is if you rip even within the 3 fingers. So Gemara right there, we'll just finish till the Mishnah and that'll be considered says Gemara. It's pretty straightforward. Same question. It says Keli Amarachmana, well like Klihu, if you broke it, you made a puncture, it's no longer Keli. So when it says shenikiv b'sheidish cotton, you made a small hole, and a hole the size of a root, and you made a small hole, so therefore it loses its keli, and then you go ahead and you bring it inside. Nu klina chayshes. What about a klina chayshes, a kappa keli? So you open it up. Nu v'alav kelihu. It's no longer a keli. If you open it up, it can't contain anything. It's not a keli. The rotziv matzavu, you bang it out. And you turn it back into a keli. And you bang and turn it back into a keli. And banging it out is not considered Ponim Chadosh's Bolakam. We have a concept, you take a keli and you put it in the oven and you remake it. Here, you didn't add anything to it. You didn't put it in and melt the whole thing down. You just took the very keli that you open up and you're sort of closing it up again. So that's not called Ponim Chadosh's. It goes back to its original form. So once it's inside Beis Hamikdash, you bring it back to the original form, and there you go ahead and you're matai. You're not allowed to bring in a dover tummy. He says, meal, the kohen's robe, the meal became tummy. What do you do? And what do you do? And here you can't cut. You're not allowed to cut the meals. What do? Is machnisa. Remember we said before, you only have to wash the part that the blood is on. Machnisa bepachas mishalas hashalas. You stand there next to the door over there, and you put into the base of meat a little bit at a time, less than 3 by 3, so it's not chashuv. Even though we learned there's an opinion, be a mix it, you put your finger in if your tummy is a problem already, but not when it comes to clothing. Umechapsa, you wash it, and it says lo yikore. Here you're not allowed to touch it or you're not allowed to rip it. Most of has a question. It says, if the material is very thick, if it's very, very thick or very, very thin, then you can't use it as a patch. So even 3 by 3, there's no such thing as 3 by 3. So why do you have to bring in less than 3 by 3, as if to say 3 by 3 is chashuv? It's not, because you can't use it. It's so thick. The meal is very, very thick. Each string is made of 12 strings, so therefore it's not chashuv at all. It's such a size. What do you have to go so small? Agav avi and chashiv. You're right. When it's cut off on its own, it's not worth anything. What can you do with it? But if it's part of a beged, it's chashuv. And so even those 3 fingers by 3 fingers, not 3 tfachim, we're worried. It has to be less than that. I want to ask a question. In order to have a problem, so all of these things, you have to wash it out. Now, just a kash on the Mishnah or just a kash on this last thing we're learning over here by the meal, but under Shlokish. But the question is, how do you launder it? Yes, we learn more. You have to have these 7 different detergents you put in to determine whether it's blood. Because if it stays after all these 7 detergents, it's dye, it's not blood. And so this will do, and it has to be in a specific order. The problem is one of them is made of glime. And you're not allowed to bring made of glime to base of English. So how are you going to launder it? Now, by the way, made of glimes usually we tie urine, but there's an opinion in Achrein, but made of glimes actually means the name of a river called made of glime, certain river, that you're not allowed to use that water for against the cost of whatever it is.
The English translation of the Tzilas Hashem Siddur
is what?
They say the waters of Raglayim, with the capitals.
So the name of a river.
So it's in the name of a spring or something.
Spring, yeah. Maybe. So they follow that opinion.
Well,
so the Gemara, interesting.
More delicate to translate, but it's a little less confronting.
How about yeshiva? Some money. Neither 7 detergents. I'm not going to damn chata. So matters negoyim. If you have the blood of a chata, you want to launder it. Or matters negoyim. If you have the matter of negoyim, if you want to determine that by negoyim bottom, you have to wash it off. It says you have to wash off the nega. And amongst them is saliva that is not acidy, and one of them is made of glime. Besides all the other kinds of soaps and everything else, you cannot be made of glime English. So either it's a kash on the meal, which some people learn, or it's a kash on all the other things. How can you wash the kalim? Same problem in everything. Don't bring it on its own. Bring the made of glime together, mixed in with all the other samanim. Then it's not noticeable. But now we learned to have vidun shalek. If you didn't follow the specific order it says over there, you combine them all together. Doesn't work. Okay, don't do it with 7. Just do it with one other of the samanim. But you got to take each one of these detergents and do it 3 times in succession, one at a time, including red glime. Ella the mivlu beroik tuffel. We use the saliva, which is not acidy. The amar shlokish roik tuffel. This saliva sarich shehei and kol echavecha. This saliva is the only exception that with every single detergent you put in saliva. So the made of glime, when you mix it with the roik tuffel with this the saliva that has no acid, no enzymes, then that it sort of tempers a little bit the made of glime, whatever the made of glime is, and you can do that. Okay, have a Chanukah